Thank you very much. I'm from Tel Aviv University. My background is in economics and I specialize in risk management. But at the beginning of my career, I started with technological forecasting. I was the first forecaster in Israel in the 60s. And however, I had a big change in my career a few years ago, like about 15 years ago, when the apple fell on my head in the middle of a class of risk management. And one of the students asked me, can you use the technologies that you were talking about, can you use them to analyze the risk of the world? And we tried it in class, and then I thought, gave it even deeper thought later on. And I decided that the major threats that we have to our world are on the environmental and social issues. And this is what I would like to talk about. I'm presenting here the paper not only on behalf of Tel Aviv University, where I am Professor Emeritus already for several years, but also on behalf of a new center that I established. It's called the Y.Kahane Center. It's a for-benefit corporation. It's not intended to lose. It's intended to be sustainable for a long period. And I would like to talk about some practical application. At first, some more theoretical, descriptive statements, and then I'll talk about some practical ideas. And because I'm a practical man, in parallel to my academic career, I've been involved heavily in businesses and established many companies. I own technological incubators. There's a lot of innovation. And also, I finance a lot of the major NGOs in Israel on the environmental issues. I'd like to open with this very well-known picture. This very well-known picture of from the Little Prince. Here is the Little Prince, lives on a small planet. He goes to visit his neighboring planets. He visits the lighter planet, and he hears the complaint of the guy. The job of the guy was to put on the lights in the evening, at sunset, turn them off in the morning. He had a small planet with only one lantern, so his job wasn't that bad. However, his complaint is interesting, because he says, you know, my planet started to revolve really fast. And now, every 2 minutes, I have a sunset and a sunrise, and a sunset and a sunrise, and they haven't changed the orders. So, what should I do now? You know, my life becomes really miserable. It's really it symbolizes our world, because we are living, we just completed maybe the 4 or 5 most interesting decades in human history, and amazing periods, and which is characterized by accelerating movement. And what we have seen in the acceleration, what we have seen in the acceleration was first an immense growth in population. Just in the last 4 decades, we doubled. The world population has increased by 3.5 billion people, whereas in the 1800 it reached for the first time 1 billion. Okay? So in 40 years, we doubled the population, enormous increase. We tripled the population that lives in the cities, the urban population, and we have increased dramatically consumerism and consumption. The question is whether this acceleration will continue. Most probably yes. However, the growth of the population will slow down a bit. However, we still will see probably around 2 billion, 2-point-something billion people will be added until we reach the maximum. And these cities are not really very sustainable, and they are really a trap, sort of, because imagine yourself just in a situation where for 5 days there is, or 1 week, there is no electricity, It's a very miserable situation in a city, less speaking about the mega cities that the number, their population is increasing dramatically. And I'd like to borrow another picture from the Little Prince. He was visiting another planet, the little planet of the lazy man. The lazy man was neglecting his job to cut the little shrubs of the baobab trees. 3 of them has grown to such an extent that they just destroyed his planet. Again, it's a symbol for what's happening on the environmental issues, because all the changes that we just mentioned and many others are leading at the same time to the destruction of our environment. And it shows really something else that we know in ecology, that one species cannot control the world. Because once one species extends and multiplies and destroys all the other species, only those that he feeds on and those that are being fed on him survive. All the others disappear. And the 2 other, either the food is disappearing because the loss of the chain, the food chain is so dramatic, so they destroy him, or his enemies grow and destroy him. So this cannot be. And we as mankind are reaching that position now that we destroyed already in the last 4 beautiful decades, we destroyed 30% of all the species. We destroyed 80% of all the fisheries, etc., etc. So these are known things, everybody knows it. People are talking usually, even in this conference, people related to the environmental risk mainly on the climate change. Climate change is a very dramatic thing. Of course, in the science, you don't get very strict answers, because scientists always are questioning things. So there are some arguments, whether it does, whether it is a climate change or not. Apparently there are some climate change. Most of the scientists agree about it, and even if the chance of this is only 5%, less speaking 95%, as a risk manager, I would not disregard them. Okay? It's a big threat. At the same time, we are facing. At the same time, we are facing also some problem with our language. Scientists don't talk to each other. Each one is specializing in his or her field, and very little talk. We don't talk the same language anymore in the world. And the punishment, already we know in history that the flood came as a result of that, and this is symbolizing the climate change. But in any case, this may lead to a situation like this. Imagine, this is a very strange picture. You know, who took that picture? Where is this person standing that he is watching Earth from a distance? Why is it there? What happened to Earth? What happened here? So there is potentially a catastrophe. Could you put the movie, please? Could you put the movie? I'd like to show you a movie of my ancestors. My great-great-father was Aaron the priest, and Moses, my great-great-uncle.
Look, Moses, we are fucking lost.
Okay, I think the message was clear. No, I need my presentation again. Okay, thank you. So really what is needed here is a big change in order to prevent that situation, and we shouldn't get lost. In such a case, we do, when something doesn't work, let's say our computer stopped working, we simply have to reboot it. We start from the beginning. That means we go back to a stable solution, to a stable situation, and we start reworking our work in a different direction. So that's what we should do, and this is really a paradigm shift. That's why I made a comment earlier in the morning that we shouldn't call this conference a transition, but rather a transformation, because it means a big, big shift. Because really what happens is that our world has accelerated, and during this acceleration has changed. Our world is still governed by a philosophy. Each technological wave in the world comes with a different philosophy, a new philosophy. And we are still having our economy being run according to the philosophy of the Industrial Revolution, which happened for some countries some 200 years ago, for some others just a few decades ago, but still it's obsolete now and it should be replaced. And this is the thing that I'm talking about. So we are driven by the capitalistic system. The capitalistic system has to be improved. What is the idea of capitalistic system? The capitalistic system assumes that each player in the market is trying to maximize his or her wealth, and that drives the whole process of supply and demand. It determines prices automatically through the invisible hand, and that leads to an automatic optimization of the allocation of resources on one hand and the products and services that we produce. And there is a problem, because while we prosper economically, we destroyed at the same time the environment. We had a major injury and a problem with our society, and so there is a problem. It doesn't lead to the optimization, and the reason is because of the commons that are not participating in the process of the price, that are not represented in the supply and demand, and therefore they are not participating in the process, because our society is not that competitive, and there are monopolies and other things. And there are some reasons why the capitalistic system doesn't work as good as it should. It works perfectly well only in economics. So the question is, we should probably have to change our goal. Okay? In my young years, I was the Israeli champion for sport shooting. This is a very good target. I showed a target which is not the best, but it's a fantastic bullet. The 30 bullets came into that hole there, so this is quite impressive. So it shows that when you aim, I learned one thing. When I aim to something, I usually reach the target. Maybe slight deviation, but the general direction for sure is there. Okay? So we should really do something, and probably we'll have to change our system. So we'll have to take a target that combines not only economics, but it should be also social. It should take the environment in consideration. It should take also another element which is very important, our consciousness. We are in a period of knowledge, so the consciousness is extremely important. So maybe it's an ESSEC, maybe the slogan. Definitely the triple bottom concept is obsolete, and also this does not describe the whole thing, because these are only just 4 dimensions of targets that we should take into consideration. And really what we are aiming to is an avatar. With those people that have seen also the Avatar movie, they demonstrated beautifully well as a person moves from a black and white situation, one-dimensional or two-dimensional space, suddenly being transformed into a colorful, amazing environment, multidimensional. Okay? So that's what we should strive for. Some countries like Bhutan, for example, they introduced and are using the happiness index. I met just about a year ago, I met the minister from Bhutan, and they are using the happiness index, which is not only economic. And the OECD has recently developed a set of well-being indicators which combine also medical things, education, legal system, love and affection, sports, monetary system, education, etc., etc. And so we should try and use such indicators. However, there is a problem here because it will look like the dashboard of our leaders or those that have to lead our systems will look like something very complicated with so many indicators on it that it is very difficult to lead the world. So really what is needed is to find a somewhat more simple dashboard which will include in 1 or 2 or 3 gauges, it will tell us what to do, okay? So I don't have the solution for that, and I really call for consultation with everybody. I ask for your help. Let's work on the method, how to put this in action, and to have more or less the same idea of the invisible hand working not only on economic criteria, but also in a combined measure. And just to show that I'm not just talking in terms of theoretical thing. I like to show my area of expertise, which is the financial markets, and let's talk about it for a minute. In 2005, the Stern report has been published. The Stern report talks about the energy in the world, and this report said that the damages of the climate change is causing a loss of about between 5 to 20% of the global GDP every year, a substantial loss. And they also estimated that we need about 2% of global GDP every year in order to countermeasure these effects. So I'm a practical person, so immediately I made a calculation. 2% of the GDP today is about $1.5 trillion. It's a huge amount of money, $1.5 trillion. So the question is, where can I get this amount? Okay? And I have some rich people, and I told you what my specialty is. I'm an actuary, and I do a lot of work in risk management and insurance. And of course, many of my friends are in that industry. And the insurance industry and the pension plans, the financial sector there, they maintain a portfolio, they manage a portfolio of about $80 trillion, which is a lot of money. It's more than the global GDP, the annual global GDP. So I said, well, you have to recycle about 7 trillion of this every year. So decide that you put aside 1.5 to these goals. It will serve everybody. You are the only long-term investors in the world. You are our connection between the present and the future because you determine the investments. Okay, I don't want to see you investing in just all kinds of exciting papers. I like you to invest in real investments that will grow the economy in a green way, in an environmental friendly or in social friendly way. So let's do that. So I started to talk with these guys, and they are the managers of the insurance companies and the pension funds, and finally about 7 years ago They appointed a committee, and then they got also to work on a treaty, on a voluntary treaty, and they got the auspices also of the UN, the Environmental Protection Agency, the UNEP, and they started working on it. I was very happy in June 2012. There was the Rio Plus 20 conference to commemorate the 92 meeting, and